In the long shadow of Graceland, two men stood at the center of a fortune that arrived faster than either could have imagined. A father and a son bound by blood, yet pulled in different directions by the force of sudden fame. Tonight, we step into the space between them, not for scandal, but for truth. What happens when a family built on struggle is thrust into an empire? And how does a father protect what his son creates when the world is watching every move they make? This is the story of two Presleys, navigating loyalty, pressure, and the quiet storms that rise when fame rewrites the rhythm of a family.
Hello everyone, I'm Donna Presley and I'd like to welcome you to the Donna Presley official YouTube channel. When people look at Elvis Presley, they often imagine only the fame, the glamour, the lights, the wealth. But to understand why he and his father sometimes disagreed about money, you must first step back. You must look at the soil they grew up from, the years that shaped their instincts, their wounds, and their ways of protecting the ones they loved. My Uncle Vernon was born into abject poverty. He was one of 5 siblings, raised in a household that was stretched thin long before the Great Depression made life even harder for working families. His father, Jesse, was not a steady presence. That absence placed every responsibility on my grandmother, Minnie Mae, a woman who bore the heavy burden of feeding her children, keeping them alive, and navigating a world that offered her very little in return. Although the house she kept was terribly basic, without even the usual small comforts, it was spotless, it was dignified, and it had pride. She cared for her children with strength and discipline, and that environment, though simple, shaped the character of the son she raised. Growing up in that kind of poverty leaves a mark. It forms a certain caution, a fear of slipping backwards, a sense that nothing good is ever guaranteed. When Uncle Vernon became a young man with a wife and a child of his own, he knew the sting of looking for dollars to pay rent, to put food on the table, to buy shoes before winter came. He had lived the knocks that came from simply trying to survive. So when Elvis told his father that he wanted a career in music, Uncle Vernon's reaction was shaped by all of those years of instability. He was hesitant and unsure. He had seen talented people work hard their entire lives and never make a penny from it. He understood what it meant to depend on luck, timing, and an industry that could swallow people whole. Both my Aunt Gladys and Uncle Vernon supported their only child. They adored him, but they were frightened. After losing Elvis's twin brother at birth, their bond with him grew even stronger. Gladys, in particular, became very protective, sometimes overly so, because Elvis represented their entire world. And then everything happened so fast. Elvis's rise was not gradual, it was explosive. One minute he was a truck driver in Memphis, the next he was the most talked about young singer in America. None of us were prepared. None of us understood the magnitude of what was coming. Very quickly, the Presley family was pushed into a world we had never even begun to imagine. A world where strangers felt entitled to you. A world where private life shifted into public property. As a child in school, I remember classmates wanting to touch me simply because I was related to Elvis. I smile when I tell that story, but in truth, it was kind of frightening. Children do not understand why they're treated differently. It is a strange kind of attention, and it changes the way you see people. Uncle Vernon experienced the same shift. People were suddenly kinder, friendlier, unusually accommodating. In a way, it was lovely, but it also forced him to question what had changed. Why him? Why now? And when he looked at Elvis, the contrast was even more striking. People hung on Elvis's every word. They tried too hard to please him. They wanted something from him, even if they disguised it as affection. Uncle Vernon saw it all. He heard the conversations backstage, the whispers, the flattery, and he was uncomfortable. Part of his tension between father and son came from the difference in their upbringing and their personalities. Elvis was raised in a home of deep Christian faith. Generosity was not a performance for him. It was instinct. Tolerance and forgiveness were part of his nature. He gave freely. He helped people without being asked. He took on burdens that did not belong to him because he believed it was the right thing to do. But those same beautiful qualities could be a vulnerability. There were always people willing to take advantage, and Uncle Vernon saw this. He worried about it constantly. He questioned why Elvis should buy someone a new car, or pay off their overdue bills, or hand out expensive gifts. He would ask whether these individuals had Elvis's best interests at heart, or whether they were using his kindness for their own gain. These conversations could turn heated. Most of our family can be very volatile, and that includes me at times. We speak with our hearts first. Elvis and Uncle Vernon were no exception. There were times when strong words were spoken, moments when Uncle Vernon would shake his head and say, "Son, these people are just using you. They are scumbags." And Elvis, with that mix of frustration and kindness, would answer, "Daddy, I can make that money back in 5 minutes." Another source of disagreement was a question every parent asked. No matter how famous their child becomes, how long will this last? In the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, nobody could have predicted the longevity of Elvis's career. Hindsight is easy. At the time, there was no guarantee that the world would still want him 5 years down the road, let alone 20. Uncle Vernon worried about Elvis's financial security, about protecting what he had earned, and most of all, about ensuring that Elvis's daughter Lisa would always be provided for. Elvis, on the other hand, believed he could always make more money. He believed in his ability to perform, to create, to earn. To him, money was a tool to uplift people. To his father, money was something fragile, something that could disappear as quickly as it came. These opposing instincts often collided. So when disagreements happened, they were not about greed. They were about fear. A father's fear, a son's generosity, a lifetime of poverty standing face to face with sudden abundance. Uncle Vernon wanted to protect Elvis. Elvis wanted to help everyone around him. Both intentions were rooted in love. But I must say, with conviction, I agree with Uncle Vernon. I have seen far too much to believe otherwise. There were many people around Elvis who were disloyal, many who took advantage of his kindness, and many who stayed for what they could get instead of who he truly was. And that is why those disagreements happened. They were real. They were human. They were born from two men who loved each other deeply, but carried different scars and different fears. And they tell us something important. They remind us that behind the legend was a family trying to navigate a world that none of them asked for, and a father trying to hold on to the boy he raised long before the world took him. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for listening. And until next time, God bless.
Behind every legend is a family story the world never truly understood. Donna will share the truth in its fullness, without fear, as someone who still hears those old voices in the quiet of her heart. Walk beside her, and she will take you to the truth. Stay with us, please,